What are we up to today, Dan? Valkyrie reached out and they wanted us to review a bunch of their new products. I've heard of Valkyrie, but I don't think we've ever used any of their components. Let's get into it. So first up is the Valkyrie O2 Light case, and this is a large chassis that's available in white and in black. And taking a look at the exterior, looking at the front, we've got a large blank panel right here, which I think would be cool for like a large decal or a sticker. Then I also saw there's an LCD version, but it doesn't look like it's currently for sale. So I don't know if it's out of stock, but there is also an LCD version available for this case. Then we have this brushed aluminum strip right here, and then we've got the Valkyrie logo over here, and then we've got mesh down below with this like interesting split design that I think looks kind of cool. And then we've got a glass side panel, and it's got no tint to it, so we'll fully be able to see the build. And then we've got a nice elevated base so we can get our bottom fan, PSU, and then the PSU shroud fan, some nice fresh air. And then taking a look at the top, this entire section is mesh for like a radiator or fans. And then we've got our I/O over here, which consists of a power button, reset, 2 USB type A, headphone, and a mic jack, and then also a type C port. Then here is the back panel, and we've got some mesh over here for our side fans. And taking a look at the rear, we've got the cavity for our motherboard, ventilation for our rear fan, got our PCIe slot covers, and this is rotatable, so you can vertically mount your GPU. Looks like we have 4 screws going around, so you remove those, rotate at 90 degrees, and you can vertically mount your GPU. And then our power supply is going to sit horizontally down at the bottom. Then we do have a removable dust filter down at the bottom. That's what this tab is. You're going to pull it out and you can clean it periodically. And there's also a dust filter on the front that's removable and you can clean it at any time. But looks like an interesting case so far, and the build should turn out really good. Let's take a look at the inside. So the case comes pre-installed with a 140mm fan on the rear, and there's a ton of options for fan support in this case. You can fit 2 120mm fans down here. You can fit a 120 or 140 right here. You can fit up to 3 140mm fans on the front, on the side, or on the top. And then as far as radiator support, you can fit up to a 420mm on the front, side, and also the top. So you can fit some huge radiators. I think this would be cool for like a custom loop or something like that, which we're not going to do today, unfortunately, but there's a ton of options for it. Then as far as motherboard support, you can fit up to ATX motherboards, and it almost looks like you can fit up to eATX, but I think it'd be a tight fit with your 24-pin cable right here. Then we've got a lot of grommets going all the way around, which is nice to see. I hate when those are just blank panels. Then I did see these at the bottom, and I was hoping they'd have grommets, but when fans are installed or your GPU, these aren't even going to be visible. We have a grommet right here for our GPU cable to come out nice and clean, because a lot of them you have to route through here and it ends up sometimes dipping into your fans. And then like I said earlier, this bracket is rotatable to vertically mount your GPU. And then we've got some pre-drilled holes down here for a riser cable that is not included. You would have to buy that separately in order to vertically mount your GPU. So interesting looking case so far. And here's a look at that dust filter. It is magnetic, so you can just remove it and then it just magnetizes right back into place. And then you can also take off this front bracket right here. So if you wanted to mount your fans outside the case or your radiator, you can remove this bracket with these 4 screws right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. So we have a ton of options for drives. We have this bracket right here. We have this bracket right here. And then even taking a look at the front, you can fit a drive right here, a drive right here, and also a drive right here. So if you're that type that has a ton of 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch drives, there's a massive amount of support for it. Let's go ahead and loop back to the the back. And then we've got our top I/O cables coming down through here, and they've got these really nice brackets right here that are keeping them nice and clean and in place, which I love to see. Then we've got some Velcro strips right here. Then we've got those same little brackets right here to keep our cables in place. So I'll probably route my CPU cables up through here and then over towards the motherboard. So this is, looks like we have a ton of space down here. Our power supply is going to sit down here, and most of our cables are going to live right here. I'm going to do my best to make cable management look as good as possible. Let's see, is there anything else I'm missing with this case? I don't think so, but I think the build is going to turn out good, guys. Let's look at all the other components now. So first up is the V360 Light AIO, and this is available in white and in black, and it's available in 360mm and 240mm. And we have a really interesting looking pump head here. And it does have ARGB lighting, so it should look really cool once it's all plugged in and installed. And it has a pump that goes up to 2800 RPM. It does have a copper cold plate and pre-applied thermal paste and a nice guard so you don't accidentally touch the thermal paste. And it's got all the accessories needed for pretty much any AMD and Intel CPU out there. And it does have a 5-year international warranty, so that's good to see. And it comes with their B12 fans, and they're already pre-installed and daisy chained together, so installs should be super easy. And then with the pump head, you can actually rotate this any way you want. So depending on where the tubes are, this is just magnetic, so you can remove this. Then it has all the different connection points, so you can just rotate it this way if you need to, or however it needs to be installed to look the best in your system. But I think this is going to look really good once it's installed. So next up is the Surge SL125 air cooler, and this is available in black and in white, and it has 4 heat pipes, and it's got a 48 fin heatsink. It's got pre-applied thermal paste as well, and it will work with the majority of AMD and Intel sockets out there. And it does have ARGB lighting, so I assume this part will light up right here because it has this plug right here. So that will use a 5-volt ARGB header. And it comes with one B12 fan, and it's got these clips to secure it, but it looks like you do have to remove it in order to mount the cooler. So once the cooler is mounted, then you can go ahead and install the fan. It's got a 3-year warranty, but it's a nice looking air cooler. Simple, and I love air coolers just for their simplicity, and they usually last forever. And lastly, we've got their X12 fans, which do have a fluid dynamic bearing. They have an RPM that goes up to 2,150, and we do have addressable RGB. So we have all these strips right here, and then going along this side, so we can change the colors of them, but they're actually not on the back, which does make sense because they do offer a reverse blade variant. So if you're mounting fans on the bottom or the side, I'd recommend going with reverse blade so you can see all of the nice RGB. I mean, you would be able to see it on the side if it was installed like this, but it's always easier to go with a reverse blade to make your build look super nice. And Valkyrie is saying these have a max decibel of 29, so these should be very quiet fans. So we'll see once we get it all built, but I think these look really good. So the build is all done, guys, and it came out looking pretty darn good. And one thing I failed to mention when we're looking at the exterior of the case, if you take a look at the front here, this is actually an RGB strip. So we've got it matching green with everything else. So I knew there was a cable coming off of here, but it actually is an ARGB plug. And you've got a green light in between these two sections right here. So that looks pretty cool. And then here's a better look. Decided to go for green RGB. I think it looks pretty cool. Not a bad look at all. But let's take a look at the inside of the build. So all of the panels are off, and upon closer inspection, you can actually see that I'm missing a side fan. There's only 2 installed right now. And if you've seen my channel before, you know I always go hard on cable management and basically go to the extreme to hide all of the wires and make it look as clean as possible. Well, it finally got the better of me because I was trying to manage the cables for one of the side fans. And if we take a look at it, I actually broke 2 of the wires. So I bent this connector right here down way too far, and then I ended up breaking it. So that is user error on my part. So I actually had to remove it so it's not fully functional. And I'm gonna have to de-pin this and then try to get those wires in. But I decided that if we're only missing 1 intake fan on the side right there, it's not the end of the world. We still do have 8 intake fans in total. We have 3 reverse blade on bottom. We have 3 regular blade fans on the front. And then we have 2 regular blade fans on the side. So we've got 8 intake. And now we can actually see the back of the fan too. And the RGB actually shines through pretty well. Doesn't quite light up like these do, but you can actually see some RGB through those little cracks right there around all of the fan screws. So it doesn't look that bad. And then we've got 4 exhaust fans, 3 on the top and 1 on the rear. So we've got a lot of positive pressure for a very good setup. But other than that, the build came out great. I really love how the GPU cable comes out right here. I think this is much cleaner than when it's dangling over the bottom fan, and really easy to route. Cable looks nice and clean. We got our 5070 Ti right here. And this is how the pump head looks. I think it looks really cool. You can kind of see some circuitry back there. And then the Valkyrie logo is a infinity mirror. You can see it kind of just continues. And it does look really cool from certain angles. We've got an Asus Strix motherboard back there. We've got a 9800 X3D because we're going to test this we're going to test this AIO in a second and see how it does. So I wanted to use a strong CPU. We've got 32 gigabytes of RAM, Team Group T Create, and then we have a 1 terabyte NVMe under there from WD Black. But pretty clean look, but let's take a look at the back. Cable management ended up turning out fantastic. Most of my fan cables are hidden in the front. So back here, we just have a really clean look. We've got my CPU cables going up here over towards the motherboard. And then here's our 24 pin. They go through these Velcro strips and then over to the motherboard. And then all of our top IO cables come down right here. And they also kind of loop back up and they're going towards the motherboard. Then everything else is down there. So overall, cable management looks fantastic and definitely up to the Dankamyouknow standards. So not too shabby at all. So the build came out great, guys, but now I think it's time to test out this AIO and run a stress test. So we're running a CPU benchmark, and you're probably going to hear quite a bit of fan noise, so I apologize if it's very loud, but I've got the fans ramped up quite a bit. And then I've ran this test multiple times. This is OCCT, and you can see we've got our 9800 X3D pulling 144 watts, 100% load, and it's sitting at 82 degrees Celsius. So under a full load, our temperatures are looking great. We do have some fan noise, but like I said, the fans are ramped up for this test quite a bit just to see what our temperatures are going to be. So not bad at all. And then even in the games I tried, the CPU sat in the high 60s. So the AIO, it's doing its job. But now I think it's time to switch over to the air cooler see how it looks, and then also test it out. So we've got the air cooler installed now, and I think it looks pretty good. But let me know down in the comments which one you prefer in this case. Does the air cooler look better, or does the AIO look better? I don't mind the look of the air cooler, but since we don't have a radiator installed, I feel like we have a big gap here at the top of the case, which is kind of showing some of the cables. And I didn't really cable manage with the air cooler. I kind of just stuffed everything back there because I wanted to get this test done. But I feel like there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom, but from this view, I think it looks really good. So let me know down in the comments what you think of the difference between the two, and then let's go ahead and jump into testing this air cooler. So we're running the same CPU benchmark as earlier, and I've been running it a few times now, and thermal throttle for this CPU is 95 degrees Celsius, and we've been sitting between 92 and 93.5 this entire time. So technically it is completely safe. The CPU is designed to run at any temperature up until 95 degrees Celsius. And this is a synthetic benchmark, so not a real life scenario. And while I was gaming, I pretty much saw the mid 70s for this 9800 X3D. So honestly, not bad for this tiny little air cooler to tame a 9800 X3D under thermal throttle. So let's jump into my final thoughts on everything that Valkyrie has provided today. And we'll start with the case. The case was really easy to build in. I think it looks pretty good. I wish I kind of had the LCD version to test that one out because we do just kind of have a blank panel in front. But I do think it looks good. It performs well. It's really easy to build in. There's a ton of space and a ton of cable management routing holes, so no issues with the build process. And I think even first-time builders shouldn't have an issue with this case. And then jump into the fans. They work great. They have a high RPM. It seems like they do a great job with static pressure as well, or even being just a case fan. And I do think the RGB looks cool. I think it looks really unique. So the fans performed great. And then the air cooler, I was surprised it was gonna keep a 9800 X3D under thermal limit. I for sure thought we were gonna hit thermal throttle, but it actually did its job and it kept it under 95 degrees Celsius, which is what these CPUs were designed to perform up to. And then in games, ran really well. And then the AIO also performed extremely well, kept it at about 82 degrees Celsius under load. So no issues there. And I think the AIO looks great too. But let me know down in the comments once again, which one you prefer, the air cooler or the AIO. But thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you enjoy my content, like the video, share it with a friend, and then we'll see y'all in the next video. If you want to check out any of the Valkyrie components used in this video, links will be in the description and the pinned comment. Thanks again for watching.